Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories podcast. And Happy New Year's. This is going to be episode 1 of 2024, and we have a great one for you. Today we're actually hearing from John Lusk. John, I heard him on another podcast, and I just knew he'd be telling some epic stories. He did not disappoint. After the first story, I was like, well, how do you beat that? And he did. After the second story, I was like, well, how do you beat that? And he did. And he continued with 3 or 4 stories that way. So I want to thank John, of course, for coming on the podcast. Can't thank him enough. This is one of my personal favorite episodes. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in to listen. Let's just jump right into it and let John tell you some of his stories. Thank you. All right, John. Welcome to the Hunting Stories podcast. How are you?
Good. It's great to be here with you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, John, I appreciate you. I reached out of the blue. I actually heard you on someone else's podcast, and you just had a vibe to you that I was like, I need to hear his hunting stories. So thank you. Thank you for taking a message from a random stranger and then joining me today to record some of your favorite hunting stories. So let's kick this thing off real quick. Why don't you introduce yourself, John, to the folks so they know who they're hearing stories from?
Yeah, so that's my name, John Lusk. I turned 60 in January, man, like just a short time from now. It's hard to believe that. Gosh, but grew up all over the place. My dad was in the military, so we moved around, every few years. Then I graduated from college. I went into the full-time ministry. I went to theology school, went in the ministry. I've worked as a pastor ever since. That was I got married, worked as a pastor ever since. That was like 85. And so we traveled around a ton doing that all over the States. And then we lived in Bangkok and Manila, 6 years in Southeast Asia. And then came back in Colorado and Iowa, kind of started finding the hunting locations. now we're in Texas. So I still work as a pastor. I love that, but I grew up hunting. I grew up gun hunting and bow hunting. My dad was an avid hunter and he was a devoted family man. So he took his boy out in the woods, man, and that was my piece. And
That's
boy,
amazing.
I love those times. So grateful. My dad, I mean, he's a 3-star admiral. He's the vice commandant of the Coast Guard. He's
Oh,
such
wow.
a busy dude with so much going on, but he always found the time to take me hunting and fishing, and I love that. So that just grew up in me, and I couldn't hunt when I was over in Southeast Asia. It's like a major sin to hunt over there because they believe in reincarnation. You might be shooting your great great grandfather or something reincarnated as a deer, and so
Oh,
I had
man.
to keep everything down, and then came back to the States and had been making up for lost time. And I've gotten so into it, especially bow hunting. I gun hunt too, but I haven't done that in probably, I don't know how long, 15,
Yeah.
20 years, something like that. I went up, the way I stopped that is I had a buddy that invited me to go hunting during gun season, but I thought about bringing my bow. And then
I've
I
done that.
thought, nah, I'll just take my 7 mag. So I took my 7 mag, and I was sitting down on the ground. It was raining. I was wearing a big poncho. Got up to take a leak, and I walked a little ways away and did my thing. And then I turned around, and there's this beautiful 9-point buck just staring there looking at me. And I'm wearing a poncho, so it's like, what's that big blob? I lifted up my rifle. It was on 9 power, the scope, and all I could see was brown and shot, and it dropped right there. And I'm like, man, it was at 11 yards. And I
That's
thought,
amazing.
should have brought my bow. And so from then on, it's been bow only. And so I do that every chance I can get. And then I started a YouTube channel, and I film all my bow hunts, and then I do a bunch of gear testing, especially broadhead testing. And my channel is called Lusk Archery Adventures. And I have, I don't know, over 400 videos, and now over 12 million views and
Wow, man.
36,000 subscribers. It's really picking up steam. I even got a shout out from Joe Rogan the other day. He was on his
I heard that.
podcast, biggest podcast in the world, with Cam Haines. And he's like, I've been following this guy, John Lusk. I'm like, what? My cool factor with my sons-in-laws went way up after
That's
Joe
amazing.
Rogan gave me a shout out. But the channel's been doing really well.
That's so cool. Yeah, I heard you on the Dan State and Elk Shape podcast, and exactly. First off, I love the story that you told, and maybe you can get a little bit more detail. But you talked about Southeast Asia, where they don't hunt, but you were there telling everybody your hunting stories.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh, did I tell Dan that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Okay, because like I'm a preacher and I like to tell hunting stories, and I
I get
believe like
that.
a lot of men don't like church because it's kind of been so emasculated, and become really wimpy, Ned Flanders kind of thing, like from The Simpsons. And
Yeah.
so I really believe in like talking about hunting, not every Sunday, but a lot of Sundays, and I got a lot of cool stories. And so I was over there, and before I learned Thai, now I can speak Thai fluently, but before I learned Thai, I had a translator. I'd say a line in English, he'd say a line in Thai. And so I'd be telling, like, every now and then I'd tell a hunting story, and he's translating it. After about a month of being there, he sits me down, he goes, "Hello, John." And he's like, really, humble. Could I share some input? I'm like, yeah. His name's Sunshine. Yeah, Sunshine, what is it? And he goes, "Do you notice when you tell a hunting story, people tend to kind of look down?" I go, "Yeah, I have noticed that." He goes, "That's because over here, it is a major sin to hunt. It's like illegal. It goes against Buddhism. And these people are Christians, but they converted from Buddhism. And just culturally, it's like a big taboo." And so he
Yeah.
goes, "It's very offensive." I'm like, "Dude, so sorry. And why didn't you tell
Yeah.
me earlier?" But all my favorite, preaching illustrations were like stricken from the book for the next 4 years while we were
That's
there. That
so
was
funny.
funny.
Yeah. That's a great story. It's one-off hunting story. But yeah, I loved that. I loved hearing that. And your YouTube channel, that's amazing that it's going so well. I can't say that I'm that many of those views, but since listening to the podcast, I have dove in, and I'm definitely enjoying it. I've got a lot to catch up on, I'll tell you that. But I did hear you on Joe Rogan, or heard him bring you up on Joe Rogan talking to Cam Hanes. Same road trip, actually, that I heard you on the Elk Shape podcast, and I've got a
Oh, that's cool.
bad habit. It's not really a habit, but I have it seems that whenever I ask someone to be on my podcast, the next thing I know is they're on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I can't get a hold of them anymore. So I was like, okay, John, let's schedule as quick as we possibly can. I think I've had 5 people so far, and only one of them
That's
has gone on
funny.
his podcast and come back to me. So I'm still working on the other ones, but I was like, oh, we gotta talk to John quick. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. John, thank you so much for coming. Let's jump into some stories. I know you have some prepared for us. Why don't you set the stage on your first hunting story for us?
Yeah, I mean, the one that really comes to mind, man, I do have a lot because I grew up doing it, but the one that really comes to mind, we're on video here, and behind me is part of my trophy room, and there's this nice elk like right over my left shoulder, and
Yeah.
that's the
I will say this
story.
to the
Okay,
listeners, since this is just audio, but you have more mounts behind you than anyone else I've ever talked to, John. So you've done your fair share of hunting. It's a beautiful trophy room.
yeah, that's like one of like 6 walls with stuff. I'm running out of room, man. I'm gonna need a bigger boat, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
but anyway, we so what happened was I was living in Colorado, and I was a pastor of this big church, and we had a big staff. Two of the staff, my two of my youth ministers, campus ministers, working campus ministry, they were really getting into bow hunting. I was mentoring them in bow hunting. They were mentoring me in fly fishing. So it was like a trade off. And we'd have our ministry training times either out on the water or out in the field. Well, we would trained all year for this elk hunt. I mean, we're running the trails with 50-pound packs and shooting and stuff like this. I'm going to take these 2 young bucks out there, and so we located this place that we'd scouted a little bit, and it's in southern Colorado, and it's extremely rugged. Matter of fact, this one area is known. You can ask Aaron Snyder; he'll tell you it's known as like the most rugged area in Colorado. And we didn't
Okay.
really know that at the time, but we knew it had some
Perfect.
nice elk in it. And so
That
we
leads to a good story,
trained.
not knowing that ahead of time.
Yeah, right. So, and we're going hardcore. I'd read Cameron Haynes' book on backcountry bow hunting, and we had all our gear, and we're going to go live out there for like a week. That was the plan, way off the grid. So then the night before we left is this massive storm. I mean, it was massive in Denver, but we're watching the news, and where we were driving is about 4 hours away. It down south of Denver. It was like terrible. We thought we're not going to be able to go. So we had to leave a bit later when the storm cleared. And we drive to where we're going to drive, where we're going to enter into the area. And it's about maybe 10 miles, no, less than, maybe about 5 miles of kind of rough roads,
Yeah.
very off road. But because of the storm, there was deadfall after deadfall. We're the first people to go through because the storm had just passed. So we had to clear, I think it was 11 deadfalls on our way
Jeez.
in there. So it was like we were late already, and then it was taking forever. One of the trees was so big, we couldn't clear. There's nothing we could do. So we built like a ramp over it. We like got all these sticks. We're like digging and like, I mean, we literally built like a little levee over it, and we drove over it and got over it. Anyway, we
Wow.
finally got to where we could park, and we parked in the place hours later than we wanted to be, got our gear on, and then we just set off. And it's about, I don't know, like maybe a 5 hour trek back to where we're going. And there's a shortcut where you go. Actually, we walk through the Great Sand Dunes National Park on the way there. And Great Sand Dunes National Park, it's so cool. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's
Yeah,
the
it's beautiful.
the highest altitude sand dunes in North America, in the middle of
It's
Colorado. It's really crazy,
super
right?
cool, and there's like a little river that goes through, and the wind catches it. So this little river of just trickling water has waves on it. It's a super cool area. I'm actually a Colorado native, John. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I live down here in New Braunfels right now. I'm moving back to Colorado shortly, but yeah, I grew up in the Boulder County, Louisville, Lafayette area.
I lived in Louisville. I lived in Louisville for years. I mean, that's so cool.
We probably crossed
Yeah.
paths.
Right by Coal Creek Golf Course. There's a big fire there recently. We watched
It
our
burned.
old
It burned
house.
down my parents' house.
It did.
It did,
Wow.
yeah, and that was 2 years ago, and they got a letter of occupancy for their new home last week. So they're back in their home, which is crazy.
Wow. Man, it is a
Yeah,
small world.
it is small.
Okay,
We'll
so
talk more about that later, since I'm sure the
okay, yeah,
listeners
that's
don't
pretty
care too
cool.
much. But yeah,
All right.
well,
So we go way back there, and there's a shortcut that we're seeing on the map. We can go way around, or we can take this super steep area. We're like, man, we're short on time. Let's go for the super steep. And it was pretty much hand and foot, I mean, it was so steep and took about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half just to climb up over. And then we climb down the other side. But then when we get down in there, we are like in another world. I mean, you go, this is what you dream of. It's like
yeah,
we're just way back there, and it's like nobody's there. And it was as cool as it gets. So we find a little place, set up a camp on this creek. It's right on this creek, and this giant ravine that goes for miles. And we set up our tent. Then we go out and scout a little bit. We scouted some bulls. We're like, oh man, this is gonna be sweet. Next day, we like did our thing. Went all over, saw a bunch of signs, saw some bulls. Didn't have an opportunity. And then the next, oh, and then that evening of the second day, we go out to scout one more time before going to bed, and we're out there till just about after dark. We come back, and our tents, two of our tents, we had three tents, were ransacked by a bear. Like,
oh
and we had
no,
clean camp. I mean, we had hung our stuff just like you're supposed to, way up in the air, like 50 yards away or 100 yards away or something. So there's nothing in our tent, but I guess just the human smell. And I mean, they're just like the whole canopy, everything, not shredded, but ruined, and tent
yeah,
stakes broken and stuff. So we're like, oh my gosh. I mean, we spent that night trying to tape stuff together and so forth. So then the next morning comes up, and we go, all right, let's go down this area. We go down this one area. We're cow calling every 15 minutes or so. We didn't really know what we're doing. And then we hear this bull bugle, like, what? I mean, when you hear that for the first time, like
yeah.
responding to you, it's like, it's crazy. So we split up, and we're like, let's go after this thing. And we're all, really stealthy. Well, I get up there, and I drew at one point. I saw it at 35 yards, but it's some brush and held down. And then I go up, and I see it come. I'm sitting there, and I could see something moving. And then it comes out, and I had just ranged that area 40 yards, draw back, bam, I stick it. I mean, I stuck it really good. And it ran, I lost sight of it, but it ran away. Then my one friend comes from my right. He comes up, he's like, "Did you shoot it?" I go, "Yes, man, I got it." Then this other friend comes up from my left. He goes, he starts making like his hand over his throat, like, I thought he was saying be quiet, but he's saying, "No, it's dead." He goes, "I watched it fall right in front of me." He was starting to draw. I didn't even know where he was. And then he watched me hit it and watched it fall. And so we go up on this elk, and I mean, it was like a horse. This thing was huge. And I mean, what a ecstasy, there's no better
Yeah.
way to describe it. So we took the pictures, then we get it, all butchered. And that took forever to get it all deboned and stuff. We're so far back, we had to debone it. So we put it over, like you're supposed to do, over in a cool area out of the sun. And we got that all good. We ate some of the tenderloin that night, and our last night together, celebrated. Then the next morning, we're like, okay, now we got to pack it out. We load up our packs. We estimated each of the packs, they varied like from 150 pounds to like about 100 pounds. I mean, they were really heavy packs.
Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, let's go. We thought we can't go out the way we came in because it's just way too steep. With this weight, we thought we can't do it. So we go, okay, we're going to go to the mouth of this creek. And on our maps, it looked like, okay, it's going to take a couple extra miles, but not be so bad. But so we're packing out, and we come to this area. We're like, okay, let's just take a break. And I go, I'm going to go scout up ahead and make sure I can find where we're going. And it's like the trail, it's hard to explain, but the whole side of the mountain, it kind of turns to sand. It's near where the Great Sand Dunes is. And so there's this game trail that we're following that goes across this kind of steep incline that's just all sand, but there's a little
Ugh.
flat game trail on it. So I'm like, okay, let me just walk across it and make sure I can do it. I have a trekking pole. I'm walking, and then the ground falls out from beneath me. I got, a heavy pack on, but the sand just goes down, and I'm like sliding down the hill, and I stick my trekking pole on the ground, and like all my weight hangs on it. And I'm looking over, like, I don't know how far the drop off was, 100 feet. And there's just this rough, stream down below, and rocks
Oh
and
my
white
gosh.
water and stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, I was afraid to move because I thought if I moved, the ground could fall out from me again. And there's
How
no
far
room.
did you slide down from the game trail
It
to where you
wasn't
stopped
that far. It
yourself?
was like maybe 10 feet, but enough that I was out of control. And I
Yeah.
thought, with this weight on my pack, I thought I was dead. And so I'm just kind of hanging on the edge. And so one of my buddies, his name is Brian. I start calling, Brian. But I'm by this stream, and they're by the stream, upstream, and it's drowning me out. I'm just like, I didn't know what else to do. And so then out of the blue, Brian comes up. I just see this comes up, jumps. He just jumps, launches himself on the sand below me, and he sticks in his trekking pole, and then he just takes off my pack and pushes me up, and then he carries my pack up. He's kind of a stud. And I'm like, dude, you saved my life, man. It was just one of those sweet moments, little bit of tears there. We gave each other,
Yeah.
hugged it out a little bit. We're like, all right, now let's go. And so then we like journey on, and we're walking now it's turning into just pure sand, and it's really
Oh.
steep. And it was the kind of thing, with that weight, every like 2 steps up, you slide like about one back. And so it is so hard to walk. I can't explain. It took us an hour to go about 150 yards. I'm not exaggerating. Like, we just thought this isn't gonna work. And then Brian, I loaned him one of my backpacks. The belt broke, like, that like puts all the weight on your hips. It just
Yeah.
broke.
Only way that
And
makes it
so then,
bearable.
right. And so now all the weight's on his, and I mean, it was just treacherous. So we're just going. We ran out of water like a long time ago, and we're going. And then now it's about, like, we left at 8 in the morning. It's way farther than we thought. And it's about like 8 at night, and the sun is setting 7 or 8 at night. And we've got all this meat. We're totally dehydrated. We're like, what the heck are we going to do? And then I remembered, I go, wait a minute. On Archery Talk, that's this online forum, I I wrote down the number of a guy who posted about a meat packer with horses in the southern Colorado area. And I had written down his number in my phone. So this is like a guy I don't know in a thread, on this forum, wrote down some guy's number and name. So I take out my phone and it's on like the red sliver, where it's like it's
Yeah.
about done with battery. Both of my other buddies, their phones were dead. And so I'm like, okay, let me call this guy up. I'm like, hello? Hey, I got your number from a guy on Archery Talk, and I heard you pack out horses. Are you a meat packer? And I tell him the whole story. He's like, what? I'm like, I go through the whole thing. I'm looking at my battery. I'm like, I'm running out of battery, dude. He goes, yeah. He goes, I got horses. And then he goes, but man, I haven't been on a horse since my wife died. I'm like, what? And he goes, man, it was like 6 months ago. We were riding together, my wife and I. She's on a horse in front of me. She gets bucked off, breaks her neck.
Oh,
He goes, I put her on my horse, carried her back. Then we had to have her medevaced, and she died. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I mean, my heart's going out to him. And then he goes, man, I was a Marine. And overseas, I had my buddy, his head was blown off right in front of me. And he's like telling a story. And I'm like, my heart's going out to him, but man, my battery's going out a little bit more. And I'm like, hey man, like,
like, I don't want to be insensitive, but
right. I'm like, that's really rough. But I'm on the side of this mountain and I got this elk and like, we need help, man. And so he's like, okay. He goes, all right, we'll get back. He goes, I need to get out. I need to get back on the horse. And he goes, just mark it with your GPS, put it in a tree, go back to camp. I'll meet you at where your truck is. I know that area. I'll meet you there tomorrow morning. I'm like, all right. So we take off all that weight, put in a tree, mark it on our GPS, and then we feel like, woohoo, we can run now. Yeah. And so then we just go. And again, we had no idea how far away we were. We got back to camp about midnight. And man, we came on a creek.
Like 4 more hours. Jeez.
It was 4 more hours. Woo. And without heavy pack. And then we came to this creek, first water. We just drank straight out of the creek. I mean, we're just guzzling. Got back to the camp and we set up camp there. I slept in the truck. The other two guys set up camp. I'm like, I'm going to sleep in my truck alone. Okay, you guys set up your tents. And so they set up their tents. Well, in the middle of the night, this major snowstorm hits, like this blizzard. We wake up in the morning, their tents, the truck, everything is covered with snow. It's like it doesn't snow that time of year. It's like way early. And there's this giant deadfall that blocked my truck from being able to get anywhere. It's like more deadfalls after that storm. And I'm like, and it's just, I mean, it is coming down. And so the guys said they would be there about 11 a.m. Well, it's 11 a.m. I go out to where they're supposed to be and like nobody's there. And I'm texting like, hey guys, and I'm thinking, man, that guy, I don't even know if he remembers that we talked the night before. I'm like, I'm struggling. Like, what do I do? We can't get out because a tree's blocking us in. I want to get my elk, what? And then out of the storm, I see these two figures start coming. And there's like, I mean, it was straight out like a John Wayne movie. These two long riders wearing the long leather coats. They got the hats and they're riding up on their horses, like literally out of the storm. And they just walk up and the guy goes, I'm Gary. I'm like, Gary, that's the guy we had talked to on the phone. And he brought a buddy with him. He goes, just give me your GPS. We'll go get it. I go, you want us to come with you? He goes, nope. So we give him the GPS and he goes off. A couple hours later, they come back with their horses. They got my elk loaded up on the truck. And then we went back to Denver. Major adventure. I mean, from the deadfalls to the bear ransacking our tents to taking down this beautiful elk. I mean, it's like a 300-inch elk, 6x public land, DIY over-the-counter unit with two of my best friends. Total adventure. Brian saves my life on the edge of the mountain. Gary saves our lives coming and picking us up. And Gary and I became great friends after that, went on other hunts together. And oh man, then I wrote up that story and I put it in Eastman's bow hunting journal, and they gave me a bunch of free gear for it. Now I got the elk on the wall behind me. And the
It's
guy,
a beautiful
Brian, that
bull.
kind of saved my life, he's like, hey man, when you die, can you put in your will that I get that elk mount? I go, it's yours, buddy. So it was such a cool adventure.
You're like, hey, yeah, don't count me out yet, Brian, but
I'm
sure.
not, I'm not ready yet, but one day. But
Oh
that's what
man.
hunting's all about, right? The friendships and the adventure. And that's, man, that trip really held it. I mean, those three of us got so bonded. And then just the adventure. I mean, the
Yeah.
near death experiences that just, man, that's what hunting just makes you live in a whole different dimension.
100%. And you know what I loved about that story, John, is there was a little bit of story before you harvested the bull, but that bull harvest came pretty quick in that story. And that way I knew I was going to enjoy this because it was the pack out that became the story. And the pack out stories are always where the real adventure happens, right? So
Yeah.
that was great. I did not see half of that coming. I thought you were just going to talk about how much of a struggle it was, but I didn't expect you to slide down a sand mountain. I didn't expect Gary to ride through a blizzard. That was an awesome story with some amazing visuals. So it made me think of it like, those Western artists that draw those cowboy things. You need to hire one of them to like paint Gary coming out of a snowstorm on his horses.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
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 that was just, it was epic. I mean, that was just epic.
yeah, God, that's a great one. Man, the transitions of the stories are always a little funny, but let's go ahead and kick off to the next one, man.
Yeah,
I don't know how you're
let's
going to
go
trump
another
that
one.
one.
Okay, so I had this really cool experience in Canada. I had a buddy that I had helped spiritually in his life when he was in his medical residency at in St. Louis. Then he became a really top-notch surgeon. And so he just was really grateful for, and we're good friends, grateful for the way I helped him. So he'd take me on some pretty cool adventures that I could never afford. And
Ah,
he took me to Canada, and we are going to go up there. And it was an early season moose and deer hunt.
is this the
And
moose you
all it
just
was
got
is,
back?
what's that?
I know that you
No,
recently
no,
posted a photo of a moose you just got
this
back.
is
Is that
no,
this hunt?
this is several years ago. Okay, that's
Okay,
a
okay.
different moose. Okay, this one didn't end as good in that way. Okay, this is more myth.
All right.
But anyway, so the hunt, it was pretty boring hunt. We each would just sit in a tree stand, two different areas, a tree stand overlooking a natural mineral lick, dark till dark. And so you'd trudge on in there through the swamp while it's dark early in the morning, climb up in your tree, then you get down when it's dark, trudge back through the swamp, and then the outfitter picks you up. And so that was it for like 6 days of doing that. Well, about I know it was the first day. The first day I'm in the tree, the outfitter had told me, he goes, you also get like a complimentary, like free wolf tag. Okay. Unlike Colorado, they want to get rid of the wolves. Okay. I saw Colorado
Yeah.
just introduced 5 or whatever the other day. Oh my
You see
gosh.
that? You see that
But
video
so
that's going around? I mean, that happened
I
like 2 days
did.
ago. That black wolf with the yellow eyes. He looks like he's already got a moose to kill. Like it's just, he's just like, all right, buffet, let's go. It's terrible. But
That was
that's
the
the point.
worst thing that ever happened. So there you get 2 free wolf tags. So the outfitter told me that, like, hey, here's your wolf tag. He goes, but we never see any wolves. But anyway, so he goes, oh, but he goes, I had a trail camera out there, and every morning these horses would come in. Well, there's wild horses. I didn't know that in Alberta. This is in Alberta. There's wild horses, and he said they'll come in to the mineral lick. And I said, well, can you shoot them? He goes, well, you are allowed to shoot them, but they're just because they're not regulated, but they're a pain. What would we do with it? So don't shoot it. And I said, do I just shoo them away? He said, no, they're super wary. And if you make any kind of noise and they see you, they're going to start making all kinds of, neigh noises and stuff like that to
Yeah.
scare everything away. I'm like, okay. Well, then he said it's usually about 8:30. Well, it's like 8:30, and I hear this noise, and I'm like thinking, it's a moose, it's a moose. I look up, nope, it's horses. And there's 3 like regular size ones, and then one little one, one foal. And so they come up and then they stop. right at the edge of the mineral lake, about 50 yards away. It's a big mineral lake. They stop and they're staring like right at me. I'm like, oh no, I'm way up in a tree, but I'm like, I'm busted. So I'm just like frozen, hoping that they just calm down. And then as I'm looking at them, I realize, oh, they're not like exactly looking at me. They kind of look to be looking to my right a little bit. So then I slowly, just super slowly, turn my head to the right, and I look down to my right, and there's three wolves right below my tree. They're like laying down, peeking over this little hill, and they're ready to
Whoa.
ambush these horses. They patterned them as well. And so right as I saw them there, I'm like, oh my gosh. Then boom, it was on. The three wolves chase, I mean, straight at the four horses, and they're going for the little foal. Well, all four horses go running farther out into this field. Then there's this alpha, this big old lone wolf on the
Whoa.
other side of the field. They catch him in the middle. It was like a total setup ambush. I mean, my hair now is just standing up on my arms because it was just nature at its finest. And so this big alpha comes up, and now there's like four wolves and four horses, and they're literally chasing around my tree. And there's like all these saplings in my big tree, and I have my bow at full draw, and I'm like,
Just hoping a wolf
but they're running. I'm just like, I can't get a shot because I mean they're literally running. It was like the horses, the big ones, are kicking like Beauty and the Beast. I don't know if you ever watched it, like the cartoon where they're kicking at the wolves. And I mean, it's like straight out of a movie. And they're kicking. I mean, little trees are getting knocked down. And then one wolf peels off right in front of me, 35 yards, trotting, but not like running. I draw, boom, paste him. I mean, it goes zips right through, and he goes, woof, he makes this hoof sound, and it goes right there. I can see my arrow on the other side stuck in the mud. He goes running off to about maybe 50 yards, like where those horses originally were. And I already ranged that area. So I get another arrow, and I'm about to draw, but he's just standing there. I thought, you know what? Don't spook him. Just let him bleed out. And then another wolf comes up and is like checking him out, like, hey dude, you okay? You know, they're like, they're kind of just right around each other.
Blood or something. Yeah.
I think he heard him like, oh, oof, you know, and so he comes running over, but he's trying to protect him. Like, so I thought, okay, just let him die. Don't scare him by shooting. Now, honestly, that was one of the points where I've learned, like, if you get another shot, take another shot. Like, if I had it again, I take another shot. Okay. So then the wolf that was okay, he ran off. The one that's wounded, I mean, he's got some serious blood, and he's walking through this field, and then he stopped. He just stopped, and I'm like, yeah, go down, go down. And then on the far side in the tree line, about 200 yards away, I hear this, like, I mean, the deepest bellow of that alpha wolf. Like, it was haunting. It goes through this whole valley, and he starts howling like that. And then when he would do that, the wolf that I shot would get up and like walk farther. I'm like, no. And then he'd lay back down and be like, ooh, he's like, come on, man. Like,
you can
he's
do
like
it.
Calling to him, you can do it. And so I'm wanting to get down and go shoot him again. But then I'm like, I don't think so with that. I mean, I'm telling you, that sound, it wasn't like a coyote. It wasn't like, oh, it was like, oh, it was like, I'm going to eat you. And so that goes on, because I turned on my camera. Like, my camera, I had a strap, it wouldn't fit around the tree. So once that happened, I picked it up. I still have the film of the bloody wolf walking and the thing howling, the other wolf howling. It howled for an hour and 50 minutes, almost 2 hours. And I'm watching this thing lie down and get up 2 hours. And then at one point, like it went down. I didn't see it get back up. And then the big wolf stopped howling. I'm like, okay, let me get down. I get down. I'm going to go out and find the outfitter. I go out to the road. He had this, thing like, put a stick in the road, I'll know you're there. And so I flagged him down. I said, he goes, did you get a moose? I said, no, man, but I shot a wolf. He's like, oh my gosh, nobody shoots a wolf. Nobody gets a wolf in these parts, especially during bow season. And I told him what happened with the wolves. He goes, whoa. He goes, listen, I've been an outfitter for all these years. He goes, no one has ever heard of the wolves attacking these feral horses. He said, what you experience, no one's ever experienced that. He goes, I always wondered why they did it, why they didn't do it. Now I know they do it. It's because there was a foal in their midst. And so he comes back, gets his rifle, and we go walking out, following this swath of blood. He sees the blood in the grass. He's like, "Oh man, we're going to get this for sure." And then we find several places that it had laid down, got back up, and then we get to one last place, and there's nothing else. And I mean, we looked forever. And then I went back and sat in that tree. It's the only place I could hunt for another 3 days after that. And I was just looking for birds or something. We never got it. I don't know. I mean, it was kind of a high lung shot, high midsection shot. Maybe I just hit, an area that wasn't lethal, or maybe they dragged him off. I really don't know what happened, but the experience of seeing, I mean, first of all, seeing wild horses is pretty cool, but then seeing a true ambush, it's like Jurassic Park type ambush, with those little dinosaurs where they three and then the one. I didn't know they could communicate like that. And then to see this thing wounded, its friend comes up to check him out. And then the alpha is just calling to him for almost 2 hours, and he made it. I mean, I regret that I don't have a wolf mount in my trophy room. I think about it all the time. If I would have just put the arrow a little bit, lower, and, I think about it. But as experiences go, which again, that's what hunting is. Man, that was an experience of experiences. I love that whole adventure.
God, that's beautiful. I'm jealous, but I'm also terrified. I don't know if I could have reacted the same way, got my bow back. I would have been climbing higher up the tree, probably, John. I'd be nope, get away from me. I would have been, I don't know if I would have come down ever from those trees or those wolves around. Do you think that did they get one of the horses? Or when you shot the wolf, they were like, what happened? And they backed out?
Yeah, they never did get the horse. But matter of fact, the next day, what's funny, the very next day in the tree, I never saw the horses again, but I did hear something behind me. I turned around and the wolves were back there. They were coming back to try to get the horses at the same time, but the horses were like, we're on to you now. The horses didn't come in. But it was really interesting, how we pattern an animal. We're like, okay, this deer's going to come. But to see an animal pattern an animal and set up an ambush, that was just really crazy cool. But yeah, they didn't, maybe they got that one, they got that foal later, but they didn't get him that time.
Yeah, man, that makes me more concerned for Colorado, knowing they're that good at hunting. I know they're great hunters, probably the best there is out there. But just the fact that they're patterning things and they're in the right place at the right time of day, all right, well, that's again
joke.
Not what we're here to talk about. It is a joke. Ballot box biology is a joke in general, but that's an amazing story. I've heard a lot of wolf stories, and I think that just trumped all the rest of them. Although one person, Brittany Kitchen, in one of my earlier episodes, told the story where she saw a wolf coming. It was tall grass, and in Jurassic Park, we talk a lot about movies. It always feels like a movie with wolves. But it was coming through the grass, and you couldn't see the wolf, but you could see the grass parting, and it's just snaking through the grass, and it's no thanks. No, you guys are braver than me. I'm building up the courage to maybe go hunt Idaho, where there will be some wolves in April. We'll see.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. All right, John, that was an amazing.
Okay, so
I didn't think you'd be able to follow the first one, but you just keep them coming.
It's 60 years of hunting. You get some stuff. Okay, I got this other cool hunt that I went on. Okay, I was down in South Texas, and I'm going on a javelina hunt. I've never hunted javelina, and I'm at this place. It's low fence, it's private land, but I paid the guy to let me hunt there. So there's hogs and javelina, but I really want a javelina. I love hunting hogs, but I'd taken a lot of hogs, never got a javelina. Yeah. And so I'm not seeing any javelina, and I'm walking all these roads and stuff. And then in the afternoon, I walk in and I smell this super pungent odor, and they're known to be super stinky, right? Okay, you need that. Yeah,
I know they're stinky and they're ornery. They're mean little buggers. That's all I really know. Other than they look like pigs and they are not pigs, but that's all I know.
Yeah, they're peccary, and they say like those are not tusks; they're teeth. They're like the longest
Huh.
teeth of any omnivore in North America, or something like that. I didn't know that.
Huh.
It's like crazy, but you can see that on the wall too behind me, like
I
over my
do,
left
yeah.
shoulder.
I know that
That's the
that
same one.
line, that
That
neckline is what made
Yeah,
me
that
positive it was
neckline
javelina.
and those
Yep.
teeth. Okay, so that's this story. So then I'm like walking really slow. I love still hunting. My dad taught me like whatever you think is slow, it's slower. Like I'll take a step and I'll count to like 10, take another step. And I mean, I really like to go slow. And but then one of them, okay, this javelina just comes across the road, boom, darts across the road. Then this other one comes the road and stops. And I had to do it really quick. I draw, I shoot. Right as I shoot, it's about 25 yards. It starts moving. So I hit it. I couldn't tell where I hit it, but I later found out I hit it like in the back hip. I had a big mechanical. And so I hit it and it ran off. I waited a long time. Then I go up there. I see a little bit of blood. I'm like, okay, good. I know I got it. I don't know what kind of blood, but it's like there's blood. But then the thing with these javelina, and this is like summer or like early, like late spring in South Texas. This brush is like it's like brush I've never seen before. I mean, it is like it's like I mean, it's
Yeah.
so thick and like stickers and not like I always think like I've seen brush, not like that. Okay, this is like super brush. And so,
Yeah.
but if you
Everything
get
is
down,
trying to cut you. Every
it's
single
like
plant is trying to
that.
cut you.
And
It's absolutely
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, and so there's a road through it. And I just been on the dirt road. I've been on this dirt road. Well, as I'm looking at the blood, I get down on all fours and I see there's like a little tunnel in the brush. And that's what these javelina just run through. They wear like a hole in the brush. I mean, it really looks like a cave in the brush. So I see the blood go in there like that, and I'm like, man, I want to have a lean, and I haven't seen any, and I finally got one. So I like get on my stomach, and I'm like going down the javelina hole. I'm like going through and following the brush, and I go through for this one area about 45 minutes, and it comes a big loop. It comes right back to the same road I was just on. It had crossed that my same road, and I didn't even know it. And so I'm following it across the road, and then, man, it goes on like about an hour and a half and it's getting really sparse. And I almost gave up. I'm like, that's it. Doggone it. No more blood. And then I'd see one little drop. I'm like, oh, there's another drop. So I find that the blood now is starting to pick up. And I'm like, yes, hour and a half of belly crawling. And this time where I am, it's the thickest of the thick. So my bow, I'm on my belly and I'm pushing my bow in front of me and then like shimmying. So I push it and shimmy, push. I can't even get on my knees. I'm
Couldn't draw it if
literally
you wanted to,
shimmying.
right?
Oh, no, I'm not even holding my bow. It's like it's on the ground. I mean, I got a little about 10-inch hole that I'm going through. And then right then I hear the fiercest like that. And I remember the guide had told me that the guy that owns the sign, he said, hey, listen, if you wound a hog, call me. I got dogs. They'll come track the hog. But if you wound a javelina, don't call me because I won't send my dogs in there because they'll tear the dogs up. And I'm like, I'm thinking of that as I'm on this little shooting. And then
As
I
you're in a taco made of thorn bushes, you're just stuck in there.
That's a funny description. That's exactly right. Crunchy on the outside, chewy in the middle. And so then this thing, and it's like comes at me face to face. You can see the mount behind me. I mean, that's exactly
Good
what it was.
God.
And it's my bow is on the ground and it's in front of me. So it's about the distance from the bow to me. So, whatever, about 3 feet. And I just screamed. I went, hey, like really loud, as loud as I could. And it just paused. It didn't run away. It paused and it kind of like backed up. And then I looked around and I could see a little bit of light, like about 6 feet away, where I thought I might be able to stand there. So I belly crawled to this place where the brush is a little thinner. And I like stood up through the brush, and I'm like, I mean, I broke through the brush, and this thing is right at my feet. It's about like 3 or 4 feet away. It's not running away. It's like, and I grabbed my bow, I drew back, I shot, and the arrow, just even though it's like 3 feet away, it just got deflected. It just went, I don't
Yeah.
even know where. So then I draw again the second shot, and I mean, this thing is like, oh, like, and I shot it, and that one just drilled it, pinned it to the ground, and I mean, it just died right there. And I was like, yes, yes. I mean, it was like, it was incredible. I mean, it was just the experience and the near death, or so to speak. I don't know if I would have died, but it scared the crap out of me. Experience. And then I'm like, how am I going to get this thing out of here? I figured out, took a long time to get out back to the road, but man, that javelina meant something. And so I have it mounted in that same snarl on its face that I saw at 3 feet away from me, when I'm down at its level. So it was a well-earned mount. Okay, then there's this other funny part about it. So
Right.
the outfitter sends it to a taxidermist down in Rockport, it's kind of on the coast, and his taxidermist is in Rockport, the main one. And so I go, okay, when it will be ready, I don't know, whatever, 8 months. So then I'm back in Iowa. I'm watching the news, and there's this big hurricane, and it's hitting right at Rockport. And I'm like, oh no. I go get my receipt, and I'm looking at what's the name of my taxidermist. So I see the name of the company. I'm watching CNN. Dude's in a boat, the cameraman, going down Main Street, and he goes, here we are, the first footage, in the aftermath. And they're going down Main Street, and I kid you not, they pass by, here's a restaurant, there's my taxidermy thing. The roof is caved in, and it's like full of water. And I'm looking at my receipt going, that's my taxidermist. That's where my mount is. And I'm like, oh no, like I'm starting to really sweat. So I call him like, hey man, like it's just, I'm leaving messages. Yeah, like, yeah, right. I'm like, where is the guy? I'm like, I mean, of course I was compassionate for all the people who lost their homes. I mean, what's my little gripe about losing my mount? But that was my gripe. I'm like, man, if I lost that thing. And then I finally got a hold of the guy. He had plenty of time to evacuate, and he got my mount out. And so I got it, lived happily ever after. Sorry for all the people in Rockport that went through hell there. But anyway, it was a well hard earned trophy in many ways.
John, I don't know if you are. It's one of two things. You're either a lot braver than me or a lot dumber than me. You could pick whichever one makes you feel better about the situation. But I don't know if I would ever crawl into a spike hole after a javelina. Like no matter what, I'd try another day is what I'd probably do. So good on you, man. That's a funny story.
Yeah, that was a good one. I like that one.
I personally think you're a lot braver than me, but yeah, that's crazy. I've seen the brush down there. I've hunted in South Texas, like near Pearsall.
Oh,
How far
yeah.
are you from Pearsall?
Yeah, not far from Pearsall, actually.
Yeah, so I know that brush, and
That's
no
pretty
thanks. No thanks.
Yeah.
It's the only. I think so. I wear Sitka gear, and the only reason I wear it is because like I've fallen off of a log, skewered my leg, but the pants didn't rip. I was bleeding underneath the pants, but they didn't rip. I took those same pants into Pearsall, Texas, and that's the only place they've gotten rips from. Just the brush, just like literally just vine. Every vine has spikes on it. The only rips I have on any of my gear is from South Texas in that country. So I know what you're talking about. I know how vicious it is. And good on you, man. And congratulations. It's a cool mount. I can see it over your shoulder.
Thanks.
There. I do not want that thing 3 feet away from me, even mounted.
Yeah, as small as they are, it's like a little Wolverine, man. It's like a little wolf man kind of thing coming at
Right?
you.
So
It's
here's
small
a weird
but
question.
mighty.
But I know they stink, and I assume that stink comes from their back half. I think probably from a gland, not their rear end. Does the mount stink, or did it stink when you got it back? No.
It stunk at the time, and the guy showed me. Oh, we cleaned it and everything, and caped it, and you could see that gland. I mean, it is a nasty looking gland. He's like, don't touch that because it's oil based, and
Yeah.
like you won't get it off. They're called skunk pigs. A lot of people call them skunk pigs. And so he said he didn't know anybody that eats them. He's like, there's some, locals that'll make tamales with them or something. I'm like, not interested. And so, yeah, but no, but what I got stink at all, thankfully.
Okay. Man, but they are cool animals, and they do look very different than pigs. When you like, I can see your hog on one side of you, and the javelin on the other side, and like putting them that close to each other, they're very different animals, but they're still
Right?
very
Yeah,
cool.
they're really different. But that was
Yeah.
a cool one. Okay,
Yeah.
I got another one. You got time for another one, or is this a wrap?
No, John, I tell this to everybody. I know I only schedule this for an hour, but like I will listen to stories as long as you're willing to tell them. So keep me up if you need to. I'm here. I'm here to hear your stories. That's why I do this.
Okay, thanks. You're fun. I like telling stories.
Good.
Okay, so this is another story that was really kind of just a different experience. I'd gone out elk hunting in Colorado, didn't get anything, and came back, and this was not too long ago. And then back at home, I had a million messages on my phone. I hadn't checked it for like a week, and so I'm looking at the messages, and I'm just like delete, 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 delete. And then there's this one that it just says unknown. And I mean, bro, 99 out of 100, if there's no caller ID, it's getting deleted.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I opened that one and I thought, well, let me see what it is. I listened. It's Parks and Wildlife, okay, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And they go, we're calling you because you applied for a mountain goat tag and you were an alternate and somebody just canceled theirs and gave it back and you're first on the list. If you can contact us by Friday at 5 p.m., then you can have the tag. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
and I'm looking at this, it's Saturday. And I'm like,
Oh no.
I'm like, I missed it. And I mean, this is like, you do not get one of these tags. My neighbor worked for like the Bighorn Sheep Society. And he told me, okay, I'm going to tell all the viewers now I'm not in Colorado anymore. But he told me this trick. He goes, listen, if you
I'll
want
just
the
blur this whole
best
part out because
chance.
I'm moving back to Colorado and I'm going to keep this to
Okay,
myself.
okay, I'm tell you this. Okay, cut this out.
Go ahead.
But I will tell you. But he goes, the best chance of getting a mountain goat tag is he goes, don't apply for an archery one. There's so few. Don't apply for a billy. So many people apply for that. He goes, apply for the last season, the late season nanny rifle tag. And I said, well, I don't want a nanny. He goes, John, people don't even know the difference between a nanny and a billy. He said, it's actually harder than you think. You even, to get a license, I don't know if you knew this, you got to like take a test, a proficiency test in identifying the gender of the goat. And because it's not easy at all. Like the horns sometimes don't tell the whole picture. You got to see how they squat, how they pee. Do they pee this way? Do they pee that way? Like it's so
Oh,
hard. So he
okay.
goes, most people will never know the difference. The mounts look cool either way, and there's a better chance of getting a nanny tag. And then late season, most people don't want late season because there can be a freak, or not a freak, it's like October, there can be a snowstorm. He goes, but the tag is good for a week. In Colorado, rarely does bad weather last a week. So if a snowstorm comes in a couple of days, you'll be able to go back. And he goes, plus, at that time of year, the coats are growing an inch a week because they got to
Wow.
bulk up for the summer. And I'm like, whoa, an inch a week, or I think it was that, maybe it was an inch a month, but they're growing like crazy. The best coats are late in the season. So I go, okay, well, let me apply for that. And that's what I got. So I get this, and then you know what? I told one of my friends, the guy Brian, I told Brian, the guy that saved me on Cliff, I told him to do that. 2 years later, he got the exact same tag and the exact same thing that I did. Isn't that
Did you?
cool?
Okay. So
Really?
I know it takes a couple points. How many points did you have? I know, just curious. I know it's
Not
3
many.
before you even
I
have a
want to say
chance.
I probably had, well, yeah, but I think it's different now than it was then. That if
Okay.
whatever is the minimum you need, that's what I had.
Okay. Probably 3 then.
And probably three. And but it was that, late season nanny with a rifle. But I didn't want to use my rifle. So then I go, okay, I'm going to go scout. And I don't know if you know the area, Grays and Tories, like it's kind of that base. I think it's 35. They're different numbers than for elk season, but it's
Yeah.
up by Georgetown. It's up above Georgetown. So the season comes up. I didn't even, so I didn't know if I could get the tag. Back to that. I'm like, man, I want to get the tag, but it's like a Saturday and I'm supposed to tell him by Friday. So I call my buddy Aaron Snyder. Man, do you know anybody at the Parks and Wildlife? I called the guy at the Bighorn Society guy, my neighbor. He's like, oh man, I know somebody that works there. I'm going to call her. And I'm leaving like all these messages, man, I'm like, I just got it. I'm hoping like they come in Monday and they haven't given it to someone else. Well,
Yeah.
sure enough,
I
I
was
call
waiting to hear
first
that
thing.
you're there Monday, 7 a.m.,
Oh
locked
yeah,
to the front door.
Monday, man.
Like, no one's getting in here until you guys understand
I know,
what I'm
yeah,
doing.
yeah, nobody's getting in. I called them like first thing Monday. I'm calling, it's like, whatever time it was, 8:55, 8:56. I'm like calling. Finally, somebody answered 9 a.m. And I said, oh, please. And they're like, we haven't given it away. It's yours. I'm like, yes, and I didn't even know when the date was. And it's like 2 weeks from then. So I don't have time to scout. I just wiped out my schedule, took leave from work. I'm like, I got to go do it, even though I just gone on the elk hunt. Like this was like chance of a lifetime. So I did some scouting. And then me and Brian, that same buddy Brian, he's going to go up and like be my Sherpa. And so our wives, we go up together, get a little Airbnb in Georgetown, and our wives like go do the wife thing. They're having fun. And Brian and I set off at dark and go to the top of this mountain. We drive up there, grazing Tories, and then we're like going up one side, the side that I'd scouted, and we saw some, but they were so far away. And I mean, we are going like up this, it is like, this is so treacherous. It's like all this scree field, but big rocks, like 6-inch diameter. Those things start to roll like you're in
Yeah.
trouble. And we had rope, and we got up in some areas where like he would take the rope, I would grab the rope, and it would help us jump to the next thing. And then we got to a point that we were cliffed out. Like we're literally, we can't go up. We're afraid we couldn't even get down. And so we had to just come all the way back down. We're like, come all the way back to the car. We're like, shoot. Well, then there was this guy that we'd seen there who was going running. He like just this is weird. He flew in from
Colorado.
Boston, and Colorado, and he's like, we saw him like at dark when we got there. It's like 5 a.m, and he's just arriving. He's like, I'm gonna go running. I just got here from Boston. We're like, that's crazy. There's like still snow on the ground and stuff. Well, he comes back he comes back to the car right at the same time we're back there in the parking lot, and he goes, hey man, I saw a bunch of goats up that hill. I'm like, really? Where? And so he pointed up this other hill in the opposite direction. We get our binos and we can see this group of them. But I mean, it's like maybe 2.5 miles way up. It's like the peak elevation there is 13,200 feet, and they're about 13,100 feet. And so we're like, okay, we're game. We've been working for this, all year training, because we just got back from the elk hunt. So we were feeling pretty good. And so we take off, took about 2.5 hours to get up close. And I had one of those decoys that what's the company? I'm just drawing
Predator.
Heads Up. I think it's Heads Up. It attaches to your bow. And so it's like, it looks like a mountain goat, and you like stand behind it. And so, like it's like just a two-dimensional
Ultimate
one.
Predator. Does that sound right?
That's it. Thank you. Ultimate Predator.
I have one of those for antelope. I've played around with it a little bit. They're super cool. And they're out of Colorado, just near the springs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I got to know the guy that started it. This guy Lance. Yeah, so yeah, they're out of Colorado Springs, and so I have that, and it's helping. Like we're getting, but then they would still kind of push off every, when we get too close, and so that wasn't working. We get up to the top, 13,200 feet, and I'm thinking, man, it's beautiful, super windy. But I thought, man, we're not going to be able to get anything. So we're going to, okay, well, let's go back down. We'll go around to another area. And on the way down, there's some undulations. And no kidding, I just prayed. I'm like, okay, God, I don't know if you really honor these kind of prayers. I know it's trivial, but man, I just prayed. I'll be able to see a nice nanny on our way down. We come up and there's this ridge, this ravine in the mountain on the way down. And here comes this nanny, and I just go, Brian, get down. And we get down, and this nanny, there's a whole herd, but this nanny had broken off. A nice nanny, like Pope and Young, 8.5-inch horns, and she comes up really mature, and she's like staring like straight at us, and we're just like hunched down, trying to look like boulders. And then for a long time, we're pinned down. There's nothing we can do. I didn't want a frontal shot, and she's looking right at us. And then she just poses, turns sideways, and like looks at us and then looks away sideways, broadside 35 yards. And my buddy Brian is filming. And man, I drew back and just zapped it. Boom. Just, I mean, the arrow zipped right through. It was like, I don't even know if she knew she got hit. I mean, she goes running off a little bit. She stopped at 50 yards. And I thought, like, I learned from that wolf, I'm putting another one in. And like my biggest fear with mountain goats is that they're gonna jump off and die off a ridge, right? And go down and shatter, and you never get it.
Fall
And it's a
1,000
steep
feet.
cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a really steep cliff that she's running through. So she stopped, boom, I shot her again, and you just see this puff of hair, white hair go off. Oh my God, her. And then she comes running down the other way, stops again. I literally, I put a third one in. I'm like, Brian, don't show that in the film. But I put a third one, and then she goes down, piles up, and she's just, I mean, Brian and I are cheering. Like, he's so encouraging. I mean, we had this moment together on the mountain. It's just this picturesque blue sky, snow, 13,000 feet, Colorado. Get down there to the goat, and we're going to take pictures. And I mean, she's beautiful. Just the hair that time of year, everything's perfect. And then I said, hey, Brian, I'm gonna just pull her. Just, it's a little bit flatter right below where she is. I'm just going to pull her to that little bit of flatter spot. It'd be better for pictures. He goes, no, this is fine. I go, no, I think it'll be easier. So I grab her by the horn and I start walking on, it's like grass. I start walking on the grass and she starts sliding. And I'm like running next to her and she's picking up steam, sliding. And then Brian just is laughing because I'm like going down the hill holding it. And then I trip because I'm just can't keep up. I'm rolling while I'm holding her, like I'm rolling together. And then we're coming to the edge of a cliff and I just let go. Dude, she goes over that cliff and launches like those distance jumpers in the Olympics, you know, where they just put their ski poles back and she launches over the edge of the cliff. And I'm like, oh no. And I go running to the edge of the cliff. I look down. I can't even see her. I'm looking with my binoculars. I'm like, where's my goat? Brian is just laughing. I'm like, dude, stop laughing. And he goes, man, it just was so funny. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then,
did he catch that on video? Up. Please say he did.
No, he didn't get that. He didn't. Yeah, that would have been right. I thought that would have been the best part of the video. Got everything else on video. It's on my YouTube channel. But that part he didn't get. That would have been hilarious. So we go around and it's way around. We go all the way around and we get to the bottom of it. And there's like these bushes about 50 yards from the base. And we find her like in the bushes, like all like completely mangled. Her hair is just like brown. Only one of the horns was a couple inches was broken off. So that was okay. But I mean, she was a mess. I'm like, we like pull her out and, you know, into an area and this thing looks like a piece of old crap. I mean, it was this beautiful animal. And I just wanted a little bit of a flatter place for pictures. And I end up like throwing her off the cliff. And then so we took the pictures and we skinned her and everything. And actually the meat is some of the best meat I've ever had. I mean, unbelievably tasty meat.
And it's tenderized now too for
you. There you go. And then there you can see in the video, she's right over the Cape Buffalo. You see her up there.
Did you get her horn fixed or
I did. I got her horn fixed. But then when we moved here to Dallas, it broke off. So you can't even really tell.
That's why she's in the back corner.
She's in the back corner. It's funny. But anyway, it was like, so I took the pictures and she's all brown and stuff. So then I had a buddy that was really good with what do you call it? Like the computer software that like fixes all the
Photoshop.
Yeah, Photoshop. Sorry. Photoshop. So he photoshopped, the rest of her hide. So we got decent pictures after all. But man, what an experience. I mean, one day during rifle season, public land, 13,200 feet with my best hunting buddy. And then she launches over the side. My gosh.
Oh gosh, that's amazing. John, every one of these stories, I thought you were starting with your best one, but they all keep getting better.
They are pretty. I love
Uh,
the memories. It's one of the things I like about filming because I can just go back and watch them, and it's not a vanity thing. You forget, and you think you remember, but then you watch like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and I love just having the memories of all these hunts. With my buddies right there together with
yeah.
me. Like that's really cool to see that.
Yeah, man, and then that's the beauty of hunting stories. It's so much fun to read all these things. They're obviously a big part of your life, and I bet you're having a hell of a good time. Like you said earlier, the hair in your arms is standing up, telling some of your earlier stories, and that's exactly what we want. And I hope that the listeners can feel that as well. And that's one of my favorite parts. I just love hearing people tell their favorite stories. So,
Hmm.
well, John, I've taken up more time than I asked for. Do you have more? Because I'm going to keep listening. Or we
Okay,
can
I'll do
wrap
I'll
it.
do one. I'll do one more, and then I gotta
Okay.
go. How
Okay.
about that?
Perfect.
Because this one's fresh. I just got back from Alaska. Not just, but it was this year. It was in June. I got back from Alaska, and this was a hunt that I mean, all my life I've dreamed of. I want to do this. I want to do that, and on a pastor's salary, I couldn't do much. And this doctor, he took me on a few adventures, which was really cool. But then through the channel that I have and the success of the channel, that's given me a platform and ability to go on some of these hunts. And everything I spend on them, it's a tax write-off as well because the channel is a business. And so it's
I
just it
just
ends up
discovered
being
that, right, about my podcast. I was like, wait a minute.
see
Hold on. So I have to actually go
everything.
back and do some 2023 research to figure out what I spent on things. So, but continue.
Yeah, I keep a detailed record. It's an amazing way to do it. So anyway, I like go. I've there's certain bucket list animals like moose. I got a moose. That's another story for another day. Mountain goat, got that. Elk, got that. Cape buffalo, got that. That's another cool story for another day. Zebra, I took a zebra, 82-yard bow shot. That was an incredible adventure. But grizzly bear, brown bear. The brown bear and grizzly bear are the same species. Most people don't know that, but as grizzlies go inland, they get grayer, and they don't eat as much protein and fat as the ones that are along the coast. They get the salmon, and so
Yeah.
they get a lot bigger and they get a lot browner. Their coats get browner, so they call them brown bears, but they're the same species. So that's always been like top of the food chain, top of my bucket list, but I've always thought I'd never be able to do it. Well, then I started researching it and I found that through like if you do like a tree stand hunt, then it doesn't take 2 weeks. You can do it like in a week, and it's about half the price or a third of the price. And so I call a guy that I saw he had done a video. I go, hey man, what was your outfitter? He tells me, I call him. He's like, I don't do that anymore. And he goes, maybe you want to call this guy. I call that guy. He's like, I don't do that anymore. Why don't you call this guy? So I call like a friend of a friend of a friend. Like I get to this one guide, and he's like, yeah, I do that. He goes, I usually only do rifle hunters, but yeah, I'd be happy. I got an opening. I'm like, great. So I book it like a little over a year in advance. This guy was awesome. Okay, it was in Kenai, Alaska, down in the southern part of Alaska, and I've like chased caribou up way inside the Arctic Circle in the very north part of Alaska. Now I'm in the
Wow.
extreme south, totally different terrain. And we go back there, okay, and you're in like a tree stand forever. Like, I mean, like we get in there at like 5 in the evening, and we're sitting there, and then it's light till about 11:30 at night. And then the guide, I thought we were gonna leave and go back. The guide goes, like he's really quiet. He goes, okay, I got the sleeping bags here. We're just gonna go to sleep for a little while. And I'm like, what? Like we're staying here? And so we just pack up our little chair and like unroll a sleep, and we sleep in the little blind. And then like the
It's
next
just like a tree
morning,
tree blind or a tree
yeah,
stand or
it's like a box blind, kind of like a box
okay.
blind, like
Okay.
just built up. But no, like no air conditioner or heater or anything like that.
Yeah.
But just a box. And so we would then the next morning you open up the windows and you're really quiet because you hit the side, it makes noise and stuff, and then you just keep watching. So they've just come out of hibernation, and the big ones come down from the mountains, and it's really amazing the timing. He said, okay, right as they come out of hibernation, the rut kicks in. And so the males are looking to mate. And interesting, one thing is what the males will do is if they find a female, a sow with cubs,
I've
the
heard about this.
males
Yeah.
try to kill the cubs just to drive her back into heat so they can mate her.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes even if
females,
they're the cubs of that boar, right? So like even if their own
yeah,
kids, they will do it just to get
oh,
laid again. It's crazy.
man, right? Nature's metal, man. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
like, that is brutal. People talk about hunters being brutal. Man, this thing murders its own kid just to have
Yeah.
sex one time. Like you go, my gosh.
It's insane.
So
But yeah.
that's happening. Then the guide says this is also the time that the moose drop their calves. So there's moose all over this area. These calves have been whatever inside of them, I don't know how many months. And finally, all the moose moms are like, all right, I'm going to have my baby. And they drop this baby right as the brown bears, the grizzly bears, comes out of their den. They go, I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten anything. I'm hungry and I'm horny. And then they go, I smell a moose calf. And so they put a collar on one of the brown bears in this area. The Fish and Game did.
Yeah.
Not while we were there, but there was a study. And one brown bear ate 58 moose calves in a
Jeez.
3-week period, right? That's why hunting is really important, because imagine if we didn't control them, because they don't have any predator. So
Yeah.
anyway, all these forces are converging. They're coming out of the dens, they're super hungry, they're super horny, they're chasing the females, they're trying to kill the babies. The moose calves are trying to keep away from it. It's just like nature is colliding, and you're watching from this box blind. You're watching it
And then
all
all of a
unfold.
sudden some wolves jump out and some horses.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. The javelina comes out of
and
nowhere.
John's spinning in circles with his bow and shooting. Yeah, okay, sorry.
It's like that. So anyway, we sat in there. I added it up for it's like a 6-day hunt for like, it was 4.5 days, 55 hours of sitting in the blind, and most of that not
Wow.
seeing anything. We just weren't seeing anything. And then it all changed. It started to rain. The weather changed. It's getting into the mating time. It's really starting to hit. Well, then, I mean, this one evening and the next morning, the action was just crazy. I mean, these bears come in, and I've hunted black bear. It's cool to see a bear. When you see this freaking brown bear come in and see how big it is, it's like, oh, good Lord. Like, what's wrong with this picture? I mean, it is like a freaking monster. And
Yeah.
so it's just, one would come in and I'm like, let's shoot it. And the guy's like, it's not big enough. I'm like, no. Like, and this one comes in, it's like under 10 yards from us. It stands up and he's like, not big enough. I'm like, God. And then it goes away. I'm like, we should have shot that. I have it on film, me going, I think we should have shot that. He's like, no, no, no. Well, then this really cool thing started to happen. So this sow, this massive sow, I wanted to shoot the sow, but it had cubs, but the cubs were huge. The cubs were probably, no kidding, probably 300-pound cubs. I mean, they were
Gosh.
giant cubs. They're like in their 3rd year. They're right about to not be cubs anymore. They should be off on their own. They were like, failure to launch. They're like a 23-year-old living in the basement kind of cub. So these cubs come in, and the mom is like off in the distance. And then the mom starts, all of a sudden, the mom looks up and she looks away, like to my left. I don't know what she's looking at. And then she makes this noise. I got it on video. This video's on my channel. And it's like, make this noise like, I never heard that noise. And immediately the cubs run to her And then they all go running off. And I'm like, oh, I grab my bow. We're like, is she afraid of? Then we hear from the direction she was looking that same sound. Like it was a weird, like clicking kind of snorting sound. And then we just see this lumbering thing. Like, and I mean, the bear that I wanted to shoot earlier, okay, that was a big bear. This thing comes in, you're like, I'm glad I waited. I mean, it just comes walking up, just, I mean, massive. Comes up there, 32 yards. One thing that was cool is it had these white claws. And in that area, like all of them are black, but it's like one in like 1,000 has white claws. And
Yeah.
so it put its white claws up and I could see that. And I'm like, okay. It was really low light. It's like 5 a.m. We just woke up, we just opened the things and this was all going down. I drilled it, bam. It didn't go far, piled up. We waited forever, wanted to make sure it was dead. Then we go
Yeah, I
down there,
bet.
right? We go down there. He's got his rifle, really great guy, Caleb Martin. It was, and the guy, Richard Stewart was the outfitter. He runs a great outfit there. But we go down there, the bottom of this ravine, and there it is lying there. And dude, when you get up on a bear like this, like I always had these visions. Okay, like if one attacked me, I could pull out my blade.
I'd
I
fight
could
back pretty
tangle. Like,
decent.
yeah, I even downloaded while I'm waiting, sitting in the blind and on the plane. I downloaded 2 books about grizzly bear attacks. Because I
Oh
wanted to
God,
hear
why
the
would you do
accounts.
that?
I know, it kind of freaked me out. At one point, I'm like, okay, I can't listen to this anymore.
Maybe when the
But I
trip's
was,
done, not on the way there. Come on,
yeah,
John.
right. That'd be better. But I had these visions of, okay, if one attacked me, then I see this thing like right there. Now this measured 9 foot square, which that's a massive bear. It's 800 pounds. By the fall,
Gosh.
like after it bulks up, it would be about 1,100 pounds, if you can picture that. The claws are about like 6 inches long. It's like Wolverine, white
Jeez.
claws. I mean, almost polished looking white claws. Teeth are about 1.5 inches, 2 inches each. But the thing is so massive. So it's lying on its back, and we want to just turn it over so we can take pictures. Turn it over on its stomach, just half a turn. Me and the outfitter, Caleb Martin, we get these like sticks as levers. And we're like both pulling, pulling, pulling. It took about 20 minutes just to roll it over. And I thought,
Gosh.
man, my visions of fighting this thing, I can't even roll it over with a buddy when it's dead, let alone they can run 35 miles an hour. They can chase down an elk. These claws, I mean, it's just a killing machine.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my respect for just the beast that this animal is just, I mean, went through the
Oh
roof
man.
being that close to such a monster. But you got to watch that video. That's a really cool
I
video
will. I
and
will.
just an
That's
impressive animal.
terrifying. What I gotta ask, John, what broadhead did you use to
Hmm.
shoot a grizzly bear?
Man, I wrestle with, yeah, I know so much about broadheads. Like I'm so
I
anal,
know,
and
but what did you
every
use? Like,
night
what'd you
I'm
go
like,
with?
I went with one made by, there's this company, Dead X Bow Hunting, and they make this broadhead called the Blood Flow. And I tested it earlier. Okay, and here's just a quick little backstory. This company was just 2 brothers that they've made archery stuff. They're both machinists. They have their own machine shop. So just on the side, they would make like some different broadheads. Dead Expo Hunting. They're based in Missouri, Western Missouri, and so I came across this new broadhead they made, and I reached out to the guy. I said, "Hey, I'd love to test it." Well, it tested really good. And then he said that was a different one. It's called the Big Game 3. That thing is massive, 1.5 inch diameter, 3 blade. I mean, it
Ooh.
is a gigantic head. And I took some animals with it. But then he said, "But John, I've got a smaller one coming out that's still massive, but it's coming out, and I want you to test it first, and we become friends." And so then he sent me a text. This spring. He sent me a text. "Hey John, I'm going to send them to you next week. I got them back from our machine shop. They were ready to go. I'm going to send them to you next week." And then he didn't respond, or he didn't notify me. I didn't get him. I waited a few weeks. I reached out. He didn't answer. Reach out. He didn't answer. Then I get a text from somebody I don't know, And then he said, "Hey, John, I'm John. The guy's name is John Smith. I'm John's son. My dad was on the way to mail the broadheads and was killed in a car accident."
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, I mean, devastated. He's just such a good guy, man of faith, and
Yeah.
become friends, just through archery. You get close to people in the industry, like minded. And here's his son telling me his dad's dead. And in the car that was all mangled are the broadheads that he's going to send me. And man, it broke my heart. I
I'm
tested
sure.
those broadheads. They tested incredibly well. So then I thought, okay, in honor of John, as he makes this incredible broadhead at the end of his life, I'm going to use that to go on my brown bear hunt. So that's the broadhead that I used. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, man. Oh, one arrow put a brown bear down.
Yeah, one arrow and a Cape Buffalo. Man, it's amazing the power of one arrow. Wow,
Yeah.
it's impressive.
That's so crazy. That's a crazy story, and I'm amazed that his son like took the time to send that package back out to you, especially after everything that he'd been through. That's crazy.
Right? I know. And yeah, his son is now taking over the company with his uncle, and so they're continuing on. God bless
That's
them.
good to hear. That's good to hear. Well, John, man, this did not disappoint. I just had a feeling when I heard you on that other podcast. I was like, this guy will tell me some stories, and this might be my favorite episode. I'm gonna have to sleep on it because I've heard so many great stories. But yeah, I know that we're gonna have you back. That's for sure. We'll
Yeah,
arrange
I
that
got a
sometime
lot
in the
more. We
future.
can do we can do a
I
part
know you
B.
do. I know you do. For now, let's tell the people where they can find you. A little bit more about your Instagram, your testing, your YouTube, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, Lusk Archery Adventures. I have, like I said earlier, over 400 videos. Probably about 60 are my own bow hunts, and about 300 are broadhead tests. So if you're ever wondering about if you're a bow hunter, you're wondering, hey, what's this broadhead all about? You go to YouTube, just type in Lusk, Lusk, and the name of the broadhead. And if I've tested it, it'll come up, and you can see my tests. And I'm an engineer by education, as well as a pastor. I got a master's degree in theology, but undergraduate degree in civil engineering. And so from LSU, go Tigers. And so I really like using my engineering mind to do very scientific testing under controlled conditions to provide just really good data points to help people choose the broadhead that's best for them in their personal hunting setup for their needs, the animal they're pursuing. So I have a really good system, I think, and I'm always working on it to make it better. But it'll help you find the right broadhead. There are hundreds and hundreds to choose from. You can't trust the packaging. You can't trust the celebrity endorsement. You can't trust your buddy because whatever he used and harvested, that's the best broadhead. Whatever he used and didn't harvest, that broadhead sucks. But
Yeah.
this gives you a really good way to do it. So check it out there on YouTube, Lusk Archery Adventures. I'm also on Instagram, same Lusk Archery Adventures, on Facebook, same Lusk Archery Adventures. So follow me on one of those platforms, and I hope it's beneficial to you.
If you're gonna trust anybody, you gotta trust a pastor. So
There you go.
yeah, absolutely. All those media influencers, well, got nothing on you, John. So this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I will put links to all of that stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much for jumping on. Hopefully you get on the Joe Rogan podcast here shortly. But John, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks. It was really good to be with you. And I appreciate all you're doing. I mean, given a platform to share hunting stories and to just inspire people to love the hunt. Man, I love that. So God bless you and your continued work in this way.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think a lot of people have got a lot of smiles from today's episode. So thank you.
Good, good.
All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. Again, I want to thank John, of course, for coming on the podcast. Couldn't have done it without him. Make sure you guys go and follow him on YouTube. It's Lusk Archery Adventures on Instagram, Lusk Archery Adventures. You know the drill. I'll put all the links you need in the show notes. So just go down there and give him a quick click, especially if you're into archery. It's the best way to evaluate broadheads. He does it every year, and he does a really thorough job of testing. So thank you, John, for coming on the podcast. I really, really enjoyed your stories, and I've shared them to people within my personal circle over and over again, which is always a good sign for an episode. But that's it, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and check us out on Carbon TV. Also, whatever you are listening to us on, make sure you give us a review, whether it's 4 stars, 1 stars, 5 stars, whatever. It helps us be found. And beyond that, if you have some stories of your own, reach out. And that's it, guys. Happy New Year. Get out there and make some stories of your own.